We have made it. We are 10 out of 10. Welcome to Sool Radio Oscar Roundup. We are ending on a very odd note with the film we've chosen for our last one.
I was going to say interesting, but odd works too.
Yeah, I mean, let's just call it what it is. You know, we don't. If I had sponsors, I had to worry about. I'd use like a nicer term. But my name is.
I'm about to call it a lot of different things, but I'll let you finish the introduction.
Oh, appreciate that. I'm Dan Carlin. If you don't know by now, that is Martha Sullivan. She is a movie fan, a librarian. She is a podcaster in her own right. She is the co-host of podcasts Did You Do Your Homework and Love Ya, all on the same feed for your convenience. How does it feel to be at the end?
This is a really interesting pool of movies, and I'm really glad that we have had the chance to pick at each one individually. However I may feel about each of them, I don't think you can deny that we have gotten a really diverse pool of Best Picture nominees this year.
I do, and I'm glad we did this. I'm glad I actually took the time to watch like a handful that I probably wouldn't have even like considered, taking a look at just by myself on purpose without. So I'm glad this happened. I'm all for expanding my horizons in my old age. Anyway,
getting up there in your venerable years.
My damn Gen Z kids and their rap music and their rock'em sock'em robots. Anyway, the last film is Licorice Pizza. In this one, Alana Kane and Gary Valentine grow up, run around, and fall in love in California's San Fernando Valley. This is the official synopsis. The fall in love is in the term. In the 1970s, I believe it's 1973. As we see it, the film stars Alana Haim as Alana Kane, Cooper Hoffman as Gary Valentine, Bradley Cooper as John Peters. Also, notable cameos from Tom Waits, Sean Penn. Definitely a star-studded film. It's directed by Paul Thomas Anderson, whom I'm usually a fairly massive fan of. His directorial fingerprints were all over it. It is, if just from a visual standpoint, beautifully shot. I can't really vouch for anything else. And the performances for what they were directed to be were serviceable.
I hated this movie. I thought about trying to be more diplomatic, but I struggled with this one because I think that Paul Thomas Anderson has directed at least 2 perfect movies. And to see something like this, like Phantom Thread and There Will Be Blood are so deliberately well-constructed pieces of art. And to then go to this, which is messy and rude and like doesn't bother tying up any of the vignette storylines that it's spinning, with a central character relationship that makes absolutely no sense, with some just utterly baffling artistic choices. Like I didn't understand what I was watching. Like I didn't understand where this movie came from. Like, yes, it is visually beautiful, but the characters and their choices are so baffling to me that I had a very hard time getting over that. I don't know. And part of why I feel so strongly about this is because I hear from so many other places, like this movie is widely critically acclaimed. And
Yeah.
it makes me feel like I watched a completely different movie. Like I thought this movie was a mess. I did not understand the chemistry or lack of I didn't understand the relationship between Alana and Gary. I did not find Gary likable.
No.
I did not understand why Alana, as a 25-year-old human woman, would choose to spend her time with this 15-year-old sociopath. Like the things that should have been present there for that relationship to make sense and feel poignant didn't exist. I also truly do not understand the artistic choice to make Alana 25. Like,
yeah. It
why?
doesn't. It. Okay, so I don't think it's my place or the place of anybody who isn't like choosing to consume a particular film one way or the other to determine what a director can depict or not depict. I think people are free to express themselves and consumers are allowed to consume or not consume so long as it's, you know, legal. But yeah, I feel like if there was more done about the age difference in the relationship, and if it wasn't just something that's immediately brought up and then Alana almost like immediately thereafter dismisses. The opening scene is just so like, it literally goes, hey, go out with me. No, please? Okay.
And then she does. And it's
and
like,
then she does.
And I have seen and I have read the counter argument to this. Like I understand that Alana is supposed to be like, I understand that this is a gender swapped version of the like stunted growth, like the stunted emotional development character.
Sure.
Like Alana is supposed to be an adult who has like stunted emotional growth, and that's why she's connecting better with a child. However, I don't think the movie is critically examining that. I think that I think that the movie is putting this forth as it like to be something that's like cheeky and whimsical and charming. And I found it to be none of that.
Exactly. And I think that is my core problem with the film as a whole, is none of the characters are likable. None of the relationships feel organic. You know, the relationship between Alana and Gary is not earned. It is contrived in the first scene, and we jump. It isn't even a time jump. It's just they jump in motivation in an unearned way from Alana being like, ew, gross, you're a kid, get out of here, to her like approaching him at this convention where he's selling a waterbed and then like low-key hitting on him, and literally like zero processing time in between those two scenes.
Part of what makes this movie very grating for me, and part of where I think it is sacrificing sort of emotional depth for a script that is very showy. Like the script is very like capital H, capital W Hollywood writer. And I don't know if this makes me sound like a snot, but I was watching it and I was like, oh, well, of course Hollywood people love this movie. The whole movie is a Hollywood hand job. Like it's Paul Thomas Anderson putting a bunch of actors that I'm sure are really good friends of his. Like, I don't need to see Sean Penn on screen anymore, frankly. And delivering lines that just drip with like, look how clever I'm being. And I don't know, I'm not here for it.
You know, like people see him as a Hollywood scumbag, so let him play a Hollywood scumbag in a movie. Hey, now he's in on the joke. Like that's definitely how that came across to me. Just his bit role in it.
The one bright spot for me in this whole movie was Bradley Cooper. I did think his sequence was hysterical.
Oh, yeah, I didn't even recognize him. Like
oh, sorry.
I just like went through the Wikipedia after viewing the film, and I was like, who the fuck did Bradley Cooper play? And I looked at him like, oh shit, he was like
Barbara Streisand's hairdresser.
Yeah.
Although that sequence is also when Gary decides that that Bradley Cooper's character has wronged him and destroys his car with a tire iron. And I was like, why? What is happening? This kid is a psychopath. And he's a psychopath, and he's not charming enough for me to buy why anyone is like, he's not charismatic enough to be the like cult type leader figure that the movie is kind of setting him up to be.
No.
Like, the movie is presenting him as somebody that other people flock to, and the whole time he was on screen, I wanted him to go away.
No, he has a nails on a chalkboard personality, and he looks like a foot. I wasn't sure what we were supposed to be gravitating toward, but that scene where he's like basically seducing a stewardess on the plane, I'm like, how is this? What?
How is this working?
Yeah, and I feel like if that was the point of the film, and if it was deliberate that these characters were supposed to be unlikable, and there was kind of like that was the aesthetic, and it's supposed to be deliberately off-putting, like weird like normcore movies from the early 90s, that would have been one thing. But I feel like just based on the way it was written and directed, I think Paul Thomas Anderson thought he was giving genuine heart from it.
I think so too. I also had a huge problem with the scene. Who's the actor that plays the racist guy who's married to the Asian women?
Oh shit, yeah, he's I've seen him in a bunch of things, and I just call him not Joe Pesci.
He's a comedy character actor, and yeah, his running gag of using that extremely racist Asian accent to try and talk to the Japanese woman that he's married to, like, did not work for me, did not have a place in this movie. I feel very strongly that PTA should have known better. Like, there's no reason for those scenes to be in the movie. Like, it doesn't even tell you, like, if you're trying to tell me that people were racist in California during the 1970s, I already know that. I don't need this to be here. And it really did not need to be played for laughs. No,
there was that. I think one thing that bothered me the most, and I fully realize this is a me problem based on what I'm going through right now, as somebody trying to open up a business himself and scraping every penny together that he can while working a full-time job and paying like child expenses. Seeing him like start like the waterbed company and then the arcade, have like, I literally yelled this at the team, like, how does he afford these things?
Well, I think we are supposed to be given to understand that his work as a child star, like he was a child star. So he now exists.
Yeah. And that's the conclusion I came to. But it seemed like he was like kind of like a C- lister at best, and he was in this large ensemble cast, and I was under the impression he probably wasn't getting paid very well, or at least not well enough where he can just buy 20 pinball machines in the 60s or the 70s.
Yeah, I just had trouble discerning why anyone in this movie made the choices that they did.
Yeah,
the waterbed sequence made me feel like I was in a fever dream. Like, I didn't, I don't know. This movie was kooky in a way that I didn't appreciate, and that was kind of compounded by how much I disliked the characters.
Yeah.
When I watched it with a couple of people that had seen it before, and I was talking about it afterwards, and one of them commented about how she felt very, like, she liked it like most people did, but she was talking about how she could really see that, like, you know, the Gary character is 15 but acts older, and Alana is 25 but acts younger, and it's because like she grew up in this very repressed household and like didn't really get to be a kid. And I was like, that's great, but the movie doesn't spend a whole lot of time telling me that. Like, as far as I can see, she gets to go out and do whatever she wants. Like, her dad makes a couple of comments about when she comes home and what she's wearing, but we never see anybody like putting restrictions on her movements. She still lives at home at 25, but I don't know, I come from a generation where that's not that uncommon.
And her parents don't like that first guy she brings home because he's Jewish.
No. Well, because he's Jewish, but he's an atheist. Because her family is Jewish. And I think what we are supposed to take is that her family is very conservative and Jewish, but also I don't think they spend enough time on that to really play it out.
Like, and it's a plot thread that's just completely abandoned and thus like doesn't matter halfway through the movie.
Correct. Like the gas shortage, which was very important for one scene and then disappeared entirely.
I feel like they needed a reason for why Gary's waterbed business had to fold. And we got the whole A plus B equals C explanation for, well, vinyl comes from oil, which gas is also. It's like, oh, sure, I guess that makes sense if I don't think about it too hard, and definitely don't Google it.
Yep, if you say so.
Cool, why not?
What did you think of the Sean Penn sequence?
It was admittedly the most fun I've had seeing Sean Penn on screen in some time. I give credit where it's due, and I can separate art from an artist most of the time. And I fully get this is like a few years ago when Mel Gibson played a deranged psychopath racist in this indie film as a means of winking at the audience and trying to get people to sympathize and like him again. And they have, you know, Sean Penn doing that, playing like a Hollywood douchebag who doesn't care about anybody and like almost kills Alana on his motorcycle. And that's supposed to humanize Gary because Gary immediately rushes to her side. But politics and all those intents aside, I thought he was actually really fucking good in it. And that was probably one of the scenes I enjoyed the most because it was over the top, but it also felt like it was over the top on purpose as opposed to most of the rest of the movie.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
But,
that was like Alana deciding she wants to be an actress was just another plot thread that like doesn't resolve or go anywhere or matter outside of that one scene. I felt like I'm not unfamiliar with the idea of a movie composed of vignettes or like short scenes, but none of these felt like they had a resolution. Yeah. And none of them felt intentional. Like it didn't feel like we were building towards anything, even though at the end we get the climactic moment where Alana and Gary are like running towards each other. I was just kind of like, I don't want this to be happening. I don't understand why it's happening. I guess maybe both of you deserve each other. I don't know.
Yeah, which is just the greatest thing that sounds like a compliment, but is almost never a compliment.
Right?
Yeah. I've said that to people before and they've been like, oh, thanks. But
you deserve each other.
The screenplay felt like something that a group of people wrote one draft of without consulting each other much, and then didn't write another draft and didn't consult each other again. Just in terms of all the half-baked ideas and abandoned plot threads that could have really gone somewhere had they gotten rid of a couple and expanded on others. I would have really liked to see more of Alana's relationship with her family. her like coming to
Yes.
terms with her overachiever sister, her understanding like her parents' background, her parents coming to understand her. It like then I was kind of like, that was probably what I was looking forward to the most, and then it just kind of didn't happen and it never mattered.
And if we're supposed to understand Alana as an emotionally stunted person because of this conservative background that she's grown up in, I'm gonna need more context about that conservative background that she grew up in.
And it's a very real thing that people turn out like that from the family they're raised in. And it's also a very real thing that you're 25 and you realize you're closer to 30 now than you are to 20, and you're wondering, what the fuck am I gonna do? I'm working this like lame entry level job. Here are like my weird ideas for careers I'm pulling out of my ass. Oh, this one didn't work. Okay, let me try that one. These are all things that really happen. And I think they kept that in mind when putting the story together, but then they kind of did nothing with it.
I have realized, as you were talking, I have realized what this movie is.
What?
It is the cinematic equivalent of negging.
Oh, shit.
Yes. So we are supposed to understand that Gary in some way makes Alana feel special and valued. But what he's doing is negging her.
Oh, yeah.
This movie is a filmed neg, and I don't appreciate that.
Yeah, you know, it's like it takes you through the ups and downs of, you know, being with a narcissist.
Yes.
It's like, did that for 10 years. I don't need to do that in a movie. But anyway, that's the one pot shot I'm getting in this series. But the last thing I'm going to say is I have two perfect Paul Thomas Anderson movies in mind as well. And I feel like they come closer in tone to Licorice Pizza, and those two films are Magnolia and Punch Drunk Love. And
I've never seen Magnolia.
It's very like, it also focuses very heavily on unconventional, maybe toxic on the outer core if you're really just looking at it at surface level, but really the two people make each other better. And it's all, which also is what Punch Drunk Love is. And which
also what Phantom Thread is.
Yeah. But I think Paul Thomas Anderson just made like a shitty version of a Paul Thomas Anderson movie. And I think that's what I'm gonna go off on at.
Yeah, it was like Paul Thomas Anderson had too much beer and pizza and decided to write a movie, and then because he's PTA, people gave him money to make it. I don't know. My favorite movie of his is Phantom Thread, just because it's so beautiful and it's so weird. Yeah. And that one really is about two people who are like unhealthy, but find like their mirror in each other, and like they would not be good for anybody else, but they're good for each other. So it's like, great. And this one just didn't feel, there's nothing about Licorice Pizza that felt intentional to me.
Yeah. Or like it felt that it was intentional, but maybe it shouldn't have been.
Yeah, I wonder if he had a very strong idea of the aesthetic that he wanted to work with, and then was just like, and this is the story I'm telling, but look how beautiful California in 1973 is. Like, look at the music, listen to the music that I'm using, look at the costumes. And then it's like, well, but Paul, we need a story to hang on this aesthetic.
Yeah. Like
we can only have so many Just Vibes movies in a year.
If I wanted that, I'd smoke a bunch of weed and watch Belly again. But
a better time than Licorice Pizza.
Hey man, DMX is a hell of an actor. I don't care what anyone says. Anyway, Yeah, that was my closing statement. Martha, do you have anything else you want to add?
Um, just in terms of our sort of broad conversation about the Oscars in general,
Yes.
I watched King Richard again since you and I spoke about it, and I liked it more on the second watch. I think
Okay.
that knowing kind of what I was going to be watching allowed me to appreciate Will Smith's performance a little bit more. I'm still bummed that I'm still bummed that at the moment the version of the Venus and Serena story that we're getting is from the POV of their dad. Um, but I found a lot I still found a lot to enjoy about it. And I just think overall I was more understanding about its place in this conversation after viewing number two.
I'm almost certain Will Smith is going to win Best Actor, like 80
I
to
think so too.
80%.
And when you and I started this project and we talked about Power the Dog, I was very sure that Benedict Cumberbatch was going to win Best Actor. But now many award shows have happened, the conversation has continued, and I think that you're correct. I think it's going to be the Will Smith show on Sunday.
And I'm never not going to root for Will Smith, like as an actor, as an artist, as a person. And I know he's basically been in the press because his wife talks like a crazy person on some weird talk show that he wants no part of, but he participates in anyway. And I really did hope it can, I hope it can shift the conversation back toward his skills as an actor. Actually, I'm gonna pull up something I saw on Clickhole just today.
Mm-hmm.
Clickhole, the BuzzFeed parody website, it just like a satire of those weird like listicle websites. So it's this is kind of like a quote: "If you see one in the wild, please just leave it alone. They won't bother you if you don't bother them." Will Smith on his kids.
Listen, Willow and Jaden got to do what they got to do.
Yeah. No, they have his son has earned more money just as an individual than I ever will, and that's something.
Yes, I do think that that's true.
Yeah.
So before we wrap up, I'm curious if there are any movies that you saw from last year that did not get nominated that you think deserved to be in the conversation.
The French Dispatch, absolutely.
Okay.
I
haven't seen it yet.
Definitely the most fun I've had watching a Wes Anderson film in about 10 years, maybe.
My journey with Wes Anderson has been some ups and downs. I truly love some of his earlier movies, and I truly hated Moonrise Kingdom.
I don't think I ever saw that one.
And I did not love the Grand Budapest Hotel, and I have been concerned about the French Dispatch because generally, the more Wes Anderson is, the less I like him. I enjoy his stuff when it's a little bit more grounded in reality, like the Royal Tenenbaums. Well, a little bit more, I won't say in reality, just a little bit more grounded. Like the Royal Tenenbaums and the Darjeeling Limited are two of my favorites from him. And so I will watch the French Dispatch. I think it's on HBO at this point, but I have been wary of it.
You will get many Darjeeling Limited vibes from the French Dispatch. And Bill Murray, for the little amount of time he is actually in the film, is fantastic.
Okay. Yeah, I love the Darjeeling Limited, and I don't understand why more people don't, I guess.
Yeah, I bought that on DVD the day it came out in like 07 or 06 or whenever. And I don't know, I was gonna say House of Gucci, but I feel like it was one of those movies that was just like fully expecting Oscar nominations and was just really chewing on it, and as a result kind of it backfired. So I'm gonna take that back before I even put it out there.
See, the Ridley Scott movie that I wish had gotten more attention was The Last Duel.
Ooh, okay.
Which I thought was a deeply moving and breathtaking movie experience. I thought it was incredible.
Awesome. Do you want to do one more episode after the ceremony?
Sure.
All right. So you're not completely rid of us yet, America. Martha, where can people figure out where to find you?
Sure. You can follow me personally on social media at Magical Martha. And you can find my podcasts on SoundCloud, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Did You Do Your Homework and Love Ya? Did You Do Your Homework is a pop culture podcast connecting academic ideas to popular media. And Love Ya is an exploration of streaming rom-coms and teen cinema. And those update on the same feed, so you don't have to find two different shows.
All right. Well, it's been fun. We'll see you for one more adventure. And till we meet again, folks.